And I wish I was here to talk about running for Secretary of State under some different circumstances. But we have to be honest, the office has suffered a reputational hit over the last year or so. And I think it is time for us to rebuild confidence and capacity in that office. That's really why I'm running. Most people, of course, think of the Secretary of State's office in terms of its responsibilities for elections, and that makes a lot of sense. It's among the highest responsibilities, and having secure, accessible, fair elections is pretty central to what we need in a democracy. But the office is a lot bigger than that too. Every Secretary of State in Oregon has the responsibility of being the auditor for Oregon. Big responsibility to make sure that not only are taxpayer dollars being spent efficiently and effectively, but programs and departments are operating appropriately. That's a big deal. And on top of that, every business in Oregon registers with the Secretary of State's office. So that's a process that can be made easy or not. And I think we should make it easy. That's a brief summary of some of the responsibilities of the Secretary of State's office. So it is a really important office with a big remit, a big mandate. And I think it's more important now than ever to have experienced, trusted, tested leadership in that office. And as I say, I did not expect to be running for this office. I'm wrapping up my second term as your state treasurer, and I'm really proud of the work that we have done there. We have created new programs to help Oregonians save for college and job training after high school, innovations that are making that much more accessible. We created a first of its kind program in the entire country that is allowing people to save for retirement. It's got 125,000 people now with funded IRAs, $230 million, putting people on the path to the retirement they want. We protected the pension fund for 400,000 people, public servants in Oregon, some beneficiaries in this room, at least a few that I've talked to already. We've grown that portfolio to over $130 billion. And we've taken the fight to climate change. We created the largest research forest in North America, the Elliott, and we've used our influence as an institutional investor to push the corporations where we invest to reduce their carbon emissions while we increase our exposure to clean energy and renewable technologies. These are all big deals. And so when I saw this need for new leadership, an urgent need for new leadership in the Secretary of State's office, I really felt this call back to public service again. That's why I got into this work in the first place. I really believe in the mission that state government can make a difference in the lives of Oregonians. There's probably no better example of that for me than the experience I got to have in the legislature in helping to bring full-day kindergarten to every Oregon student. You just think about the impact that has on young people who are starting their educational journeys, but don't forget the impact it has on families too, who don't have to worry quite as much about the cost or the accessibility or the quality of early childhood education or childcare. That's real impact. That's the reason I do this work. But I would also say, unfortunately, thanks to Donald Trump and his followers, the faith that people have, the confidence in state government, in institutions and processes more generally, is at a really low level, and it continues to fall. And that's dangerous. That's alarming. It's not something that we can allow to continue. And the Secretary of State's office has a really important role in helping to rebuild that confidence. So when I'm Secretary of State, we will start the hard work immediately of restoring confidence and building back the integrity that needs to be in that office. We'll establish new standards for transparency and ethics. We will make sure that audits are conducted based on a real assessment of risks and opportunities, not on a predetermined political outcome. And we'll turn the office into a partner for entrepreneurs, not another bureaucratic barrier. That, of course, all happens while we continue Oregon's reputation and national leadership in maintaining secure, fair, accessible elections. We got a lot to be proud of on that front in Oregon, but we can't take it for granted. There are people who are trying to undercut that, and that's not acceptable. So we're not going to let anyone intimidate us. We're not going to stand for people who are threatening people who are carrying out those elections. And we're going to continue on that process of making it easy for everybody to vote, and knowing and building the confidence that people will say, I choose to vote because I know my vote will be counted and my voice valued. The thing that I think I always come back to, and it's a good example as we came down from Beaverton today, this is a big geographic state. But the thing that I'm always heartened by is that despite that big geography and the really significant differences in outlook and background that everybody brings to Oregon, what brings us together, I think, is our values and the recognition that everybody deserves a fair shot, that diversity is not something to be derided as woke. It's a real source of strength, and that we're committed to equal justice for everyone. So we've got, I don't want to sound Pollyannish, we got lots of work to do to live up to those values, but they are, I think, what unite us as Oregonians, particularly as Democrats, and they're the things that are animating me and what I'm going to fight for every day as your Secretary of State. So I appreciate you being here. I'm looking forward to this campaign and to the conversation that I hope we'll have now. Thank you.
Awesome. Are you going to answer questions?
I would be disappointed. I even went around ahead of time and said I'm going to come and ask for questions later. So I hope people will have some.
I just want to make sure we have one person in the waiting room.
Okay.
So,
yeah, great.
But yeah, so if folks want to ask questions, feel free to raise your hand. If you're on the Zoom, feel free to raise your hand as well, and we'll try to get people in order. So I saw Graham first, and then Jenny, and then Keith. Graham was first.
Great, please.
So there must be standards for ethics and transparency that exist in the Secretary of State's office. So you say you're going to set new ones. What specifically would you do?
I think there are a number of examples. I think one, for example, when candidates have to disclose their expenditures, their contributions and expenditures. Right now, there's not that much detail on what the purpose is. You can look up and down contribution and expenditure reports and see a bill at a restaurant or a hotel. Well, there are certainly places where that would make sense if you're going for a campaign event or you're holding a campaign event as a part. But you don't have to submit the receipt. You don't have to say what the purpose was. That's an example of where I think we need to have a lot more specifics. And I'm talking, I mean, there are certainly things that we can do differently inside the Secretary of State's office, but more broadly I'm interested in as well. Some of you may be aware there's an effort recently to organize in the labor sense the staff at the legislature. If we're doing that, I think it's probably time to look at the exemption that has existed over time for nepotism. Maybe legislators shouldn't be hiring their own family members as well. A lot of these things I think can be thought of across state government, and we got work to do.
All right, awesome.
Thanks.
So next up is Jenny.
Okay, Jenny's online.
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, I don't know if you're aware of it, but we do not get voters pamphlets in this county and in many other counties because our county commissioners don't like informed voters. We don't get them for small board elections like school boards, mayors, city councilors, that kind of thing. So we have written up a resolution that is on our webpage, and it passed unanimously, asking that there be a law passed requiring voters pamphlets for all contested elections, because it's often very hard to find any kind of information out. The only information we could find on our last school board candidates in Lebanon was some really big signs paid for by out-of-state right-wing PACs, basically.
Yep.
And other than that, we couldn't find out anything about many of these people. So it was really difficult. And we knocked on doors to get out to vote, and people hadn't voted because they were waiting for their voters pamphlet, which they assumed they were going to get.
Yeah.
So I've actually talked to Representative Zach Hudson, and he's getting a bill written for the 2025 session.
Great. Great.
I hope you will support this, and if you are elected, that you implement it rapidly.
I think you raised a really important question. You're getting applause in the room if you can't hear it. Not surprising since it passed unanimously, but that's good work. You know, I've been making my way around the state, talking to county clerks. I've talked to 19 of the 36 at this point. And this is something they bring up in a slightly different form. They point out that the state does not contribute to the costs of elections for counties. So I think that's something in a more broad sense that we need to look at. Voters' pamphlets are obviously a part of that.
That was the second point of our law, was that the state would fund it, would pay for those.
Good. Now, I've been a legislator in the past, so I am also sensitive to the idea of saying, do this without identifying the funding source. But I think that's pretty fundamental to who we are as a democracy, and we got to get that figured out. So I think voters' pamphlets are just one piece of it. As we just established, it's the broader question of elections and making sure that counties and cities and special districts have the ability to fulfill that. I don't know why I'm looking at this. I feel like you're online. I'm looking at the camera here, but hopefully you're seeing me looking at the camera. So
we all are.
I raised that. I think you raised a really important point, and I'll be interested to talk with Representative Hudson about that and figuring out how we can implement that. And that's the other really important point in this race, because you know, I have nothing bad to say about my opponent, Senator Manning. He is a good man. We agree on a lot of things. But I think what you see in this race is a contrast. I was a legislator as well, and I have learned a whole lot being state treasurer over the last 7 years about what it means to implement legislation, to take ideas from the conceptual stage to actually delivering results for people. And I think it's really critical that the next Secretary of State be someone who has that experience. This is a set of high stakes, nuanced, no-fail things that the Secretary of State has to be able to do. And whether it's the bill that you're talking about with Representative Hudson, the possibility of ranked choice voting, or a whole range of other things, we got to have someone who is able to do that in a way that builds confidence and delivers results. So I appreciate the question, Jenny. Thank you.
Awesome. Keith was next, and then are there other hands from folks? We'll go Nancy, and if you folks online want to raise your hands, I'll be able to get those in the order after Keith.
Great.
And Nancy.
So with people being so misinformed on voting and what the Secretary of State does, how are you going to educate the public? How would you do that and turn that around to increase confidence?
Yeah. The first, if everybody, I don't know if everybody could hear online, the question was how do we rebuild confidence in the wake of people being misinformed on what the Secretary of State does and how elections work? That's a decent paraphrase of your question. I think a lot about the experience I had as a legislator knocking on doors. You know, it is a slow process, but it's really effective, and people have long memories. So I think that's a good place to start, and actually showing up in places. And it's been really fascinating interacting with these county clerks around the state. You know, it looks really different in Washington County, for example, as opposed to Yamhill County or Polk County. Some are big counties, some are small counties, some are in really purpose-built offices, some are in old post offices and courthouses, and they have different sets of challenges. But every one of those clerks has expressed a really sincere and heartfelt commitment to getting this right. And they all talk about their most effective method is bringing the skeptics into the office and saying, let's walk through the process. And don't come, outside of an election. Come when the election's happening so you can see it in action, see the controls, the security, the procedures and protocol that are in place. It's a big deal, and it looks different in different places, but having the presence, the confidence, the credibility to look people in the eye and to talk about it, to invite people to use the convening power and the bully pulpit of the office to say, no, I've been in those offices, come with me, and let's go through that experience. It's not as fast as I think we would all like it, but I think it has durability and staying power when people have that experience of being there and seeing the physical space where signatures are verified, where ballots are counted. When you see that, You can go out and talk to your neighbors and your friends and just slowly take away the concerns that people have. I think that's going to be most effective, and it's something I'm looking forward to.
All right, Nancy, next.
And no one more than Steve Druckenmiller.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, does everybody know that we just passed the 25th anniversary of making mail-in ballots
And
the
you
norm
know-
here? And he was the guy.
And he died.
I did know that. I wrote a note to his family. Big deal.
So, at my question, but first I'll say, I was just thinking, what's the sequence of secretaries of state? And it's, for all those reasons, but man, I mean, it's been a revolving door.
I've been treasurer for 7 years, 4 secretaries of state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this comes from, I coordinate the neighborhood leader program.
Thank
so
you.
Spend a lot of time looking.
Which came from
at-
Washington County, right? Since you gave me Druckenmiller, I can say Washington County. So.
It did.
Yeah.
And Steve still, is the man.
Yes, he is.
Um,
Steve Packer, for those who.
and I'm asking you this because you're a legislator and now you're going to be the Secretary of State.
I like this confidence. Thank you. Thank you.
Here's just the word, non-affiliated voters.
Yeah.
And we know that group is becoming larger every day.
Yes.
In Linn County, it's now the largest single block of voters.
Yep.
And probably every place but a couple of counties, that's just gonna happen.
Right.
What are your thoughts on how to enfranchise non-affiliated voters, and especially young non-affiliated voters?
It's a really smart question, and I have 2 thoughts. One is a concerted effort to recruit people. Well, that's maybe 1A, and there's 1B, and then there's 2. So the 1B, I think there's some gains to be made in that effort by just reminding people of all the important things that are on a primary ballot, even if you are a non-affiliated voter. Think about school boards and bonds and city councils and mayors and all that sort of stuff. So if someone just says, I'm not going to participate, they're missing out. And some of those offices, I think, are the ones that people feel especially connected to because of the local impact of those decisions. The second idea is short of the really meaty conversations about open primaries and top 2 or top 5 or all of your preferred versions of that. That's an interesting conversation, but I think there's another thing that we could do that could help short of that. And this comes from a conversation I had with the clerk in Deschutes County. He said that the biggest complaint he gets is from a non-affiliated voter who comes in, many of them having been automatically registered and rationally assuming, if one does not devote the attention to these things that we all do, that I'm registered, I get to vote. They come in and say, wait, I got this nonpartisan thing. I want to be a Republican or a Democrat or something else. And the clerk has to say, sorry, the deadline for changing your party has passed. He went on to say that from his point of view, that's a fairly arbitrary date. That he thinks they could absolutely handle the workload if they were allowed to say, oh, you'd like the Republican ballot, let me print a new one for you. You'd like the Democratic ballot, let's print a new one for you. That's a pretty simple statutory sort of change that doesn't require us to come to consensus on the larger questions. And I think that could help a lot too. So we can have those other deeper conversations as well, but that seems like a pretty straightforward, simple solution that can help.
Awesome. So 1 second, we have Susan Heath online, and then we'll go Paula, and then Jenny, did you have your hand up again?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we'll do that order. So Susan Heath, you're
Okay.
up next.